Do you guys like turtles? I actually really do. There's a river that runs into the ocean right near my house, and on beautiful days like this, and it is a beautiful day, by the way, just had my coffee in the park. It was one of those magical mornings. I really hope you're having a fantastic day as well. But the turtles come out and they bask on the bank, right? Because they're reptiles, and I go down there and I feed them bananas, which they really like. And it's good for them. I've looked it up. It's not going to mess with their stomachs or anything. So I really like turtles. Let me know where you guys stand. But when it comes to turtles in Tekken, and I'm known for my segues, by the way, my feelings are a little bit more mixed. Now, I'm not trying to say that it's an invalid or dishonest way to play the game. I actually think being super defensive is a great way to play the game. It's even the proper way, I think, to play some characters, but it can be very frustrating to play against. And that's, of course, exactly what a defensive player is trying to do to you when they're playing like that. If Kazuya here is a turtle, he's not a green turtle or a leatherback or something like that. He's more like one of those snapping turtles, you know, with a worm for a tongue, and he's going to fuck around and get you to get close, and that's when he's going to bite your fingers off. But I was thinking about this thing of playing against defensive characters. I had a couple of really interesting matchups online last night, and I feel like I understood better why some characters aren't very good in this game right now. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. I'm going to use this matchup of Miguel versus Mishima's, or specifically Kazuya, as an example, but I think it applies in many more cases than this. As you know, I've been playing a lot of Miguel recently. I've gotten back into him, and I have to say, what a fantastic character design. Just one of the most fun characters I've ever played in any game. I think my top 5 favorite moves in the game might all be on this character, you know. Hitting with Savage 2, down 3, the counter hit on the bitch slap back 1, you know, the bull rush. Fantastic, really fun to use moves, but the character unfortunately can be frustratingly weak in some scenarios. In some others he does quite well, but it's not a great character. And so basically what happened when I was playing last night is I ran into this Mishima guy. He was playing Kazuya. I think he was at Tekken King rank on his Kazuya, but he had Tekken God Prime. So when you're dealing with Smurfs, the Mishima players are always the most dangerous, because, you know, they can have expert skill on one Mishima, then switch to another one, completely different rank, completely different character, but they retain their strongest moves, and they already know the difficult execution with perfect precision, right? So this person was playing very defensively, throwing a lot of electrics, and never messed a single one up. But it was also one of those things where he knew that he couldn't only throw it. He would mix in stuff like the axe kick every once in a while to represent and let me know you can't just run in and crouch here, because you might eat a full combo and lose the round. You know, you have to respect me. So he was playing the cookie cutter and clean way to play Kazuya online, in my opinion. And I just really felt like I struggled to get close and engage in any meaningful way with this player. So I considered, you know, what options I have to try and get in on a person who's playing like that. And this is where Miguel's big weaknesses really come to the forefront, because what I can do essentially is I have this string, right, which is it's got a mix-up built in, but if I guess right, I deal some damage. If I guess wrong, or my opponent guesses right, then I deal a lot of, or I eat a lot of damage. And especially if they guess right when I do this safe version and they duck, I'm going to get launched for a massive combo. So there's a massive amount of risk baked into this gap closer, and this is one of the major flaws of Miguel that we keep talking about, right? The fact that he needs to take high risk all the time. And I thought about all the other moves I could do to try and get in here. Super linear and slow stuff. The slash kick is all right, unless they step it the way they should, you know? All these moves that are way too weak. Doesn't help that if I try and, you know, go in with and open up with jabs, which is a classic Tekken strategy, you know, you throw out your fastest move to try and check them in case they're going to do something. If you hit, you get some advantage. You do something based on that, maybe a low, you know. Doesn't help that your range is so poor on these opening up attacks that it actually exposes you to a lot of risk, especially if the opponent is backdashing, right? So really risky, really uncomfortable. It felt like there was this barrier, this fence made of electrics between me and the opponent. But then a really interesting thing happened, because every once in a while I would somehow be able to break through. Maybe I did predict an electric and score something. Maybe I did manage to hit with this move when I was supposed to and get a counter hit. And then what happens is I run straight in, and now I've gone through the electric fence. I can apply Oki, and the dynamic of the match changes completely, because now all of a sudden all of these great moves that I have become a factor. The really fast, amazing counter hit move back one, which is extremely short range and not really useful unless we're really brawling and being really close, and my opponent is going to attack me at close range. That becomes a factor. Now he has to respect that. He has to worry about all kinds of like close range pokes that I have. And when that happened, I actually did really quite well, and I was able to take rounds on him. But then, maybe he would knock me down, he would gain space, and I would go back to this really claustrophobic feeling of not really being able to play Tekken. Lows, this is another thing, this down 3, Miguel doesn't really have lows that high crush. His best lows are like Savage down back 3. Really dangerous to run in and try and do Savage down back 3, because look, I go in, I have to manually go into the stand, so I'm standing within range of my opponent's powerful moves and wasting time before I can do this low. Very dangerous. Down back 4 doesn't crush highs. Down 3 does, but it's very slow. This is a 21 frame to impact low. At 21 frames, many characters have a homing, really long range counter hit launching sweep, as opposed to this kind of lackluster but nice long range low poke. So really struggle to go under barriers, specifically really struggle with trying to get in under highs. I basically boiled it down to that there's one effective thing I can do, there's one move that works, and it's the Bull Rush. This move is fantastic for Miguel. I'm starting to believe it's pretty much his best move now that this move has been nerfed, because you can close the gap. It is relatively safe. It is on the slow side. The opponent can evade it, and if they block it, you either mix up a close range. Now I do this, he blocks it, and I eat a hell sweep right away, something like that. But it does work, and if you know how to time it and when to apply it, it really can work wonders for you. But it's pretty much all you have. And so I started thinking about my matchup against other defensive characters with good keep out like Asuka, and how Miguel just really struggles in that matchup. If you look at my gameplay footage with this character, I actually score more perfects when I play Miguel than any other character. But basically what happens is, if I'm able to get in here and I'm sticking all of my close range powerful stuff on the opponent, I can run away with a lot of damage. Especially if I get the wall, because Miguel is decent at the wall. He has this, even though it's risky, they can launch it, but you have high damage stuff, right? So it's easy to do. Like I've done a couple of 8-second rounds with this character recently. I've recorded some of them if you want to see them. It's pretty crazy when it goes that fast, but when we have to play proper Tekken and there's a bit of space, he loses just a lot of his mojo. So consider this situation where I'm being barricaded by the electric fence, and consider a couple of other characters, because basically what happened is I took like 2 games on that guy, then he started winning a couple of games in a row, and then I moved on to another opponent. I ran into a Devil Jin who was also a high level Mishima player, and I had similar issues. So I decided to switch to Zafina and play some Zafina, and then I ran into those same 2 players. And it was amazing to me just how much the entire texture and feeling of the fight changed. It was like I could breathe. It was like getting to have a piss after holding it in for like 2 days. Because with Zafina, just consider what I can do when I'm out here. First of all, back 1+2 and down 3, I have long range, high crushing lows that can go under stuff and harass my opponent's legs. That means that if I can stack a little bit of damage on the opponent with that, he eventually has to stop turtling. He has to worry about engaging with me, because otherwise I'm running away with damage. With Zafina, I also have 4/4/3+4, the Starfish. I can jump in with something relatively safe from long range, score a knockdown, get some damage. Even better, I have her 4/4/4, which is her long range knockdown, low crush, even homing move that is safe on block. Extremely good move, very safe to apply, right? And so I have stuff that I can throw out and check my opponent with and try and time right. And if I get any of those moves to connect the way I want to, I run in, I'm within the fence, and I can play with them, or I can disengage if I want to, if I prefer that playstyle on my character. Consider a couple of other characters, what they could do in that scenario. Say, for example, you're playing the bears, you can run in with a 1+2, and now you're in a mix-up stance with advantage if you're playing Dragonov. As long as you don't get sidestepped with precision, you can stick them with your running 2. Whether they block, get hit, or get counter hit, you're in an advantageous position. You can apply a mix-up. Maybe you knock them down and apply Oki or a full combo. And I just kept thinking about characters, you know. Elisa has her running too, gives her advantage from a range. It's high, they can duck it, but she has safe mid mix-up options. Claudio has the exact same thing, right? A bunch of characters do, and I just started to feel like Miguel is uniquely poor when it comes to breaking down these barriers and getting in on turtles. And a couple of other characters who are currently considered quite weak in this game, I think share a similar problem. I think Chloe has similar issues, because getting into back turn with her and trying to roll towards the opponent, it's completely neutralized by sidewalking, right? If the opponent is good at moving sideways, her running slash kick where she jumps up in the air, extremely easy to step to the left, basically times the step for you with the animation. The exception, like if we're talking about weak characters that came to mind, is Gigas, because with Gigas, you do have that fantastic, safe gap closer that you can check people with. It's his forward too. And I've played a bunch of Gigas recently. It really is pretty much half of what you do with that character. It's so important for him. It's like his best move. You have to do it all the time. And it crushes highs. Gigas is weak for other reasons. He's, on the other hand, I think weak when you get to stand close to the opponent, because all of his stuff is poor in terms of impact, speed, and frame data, and minus frames on block. So he's not good at being up here, where Miguel kind of thrives, even though Miguel does take risks when he's up here as well. So I talked in a recent video about how I want Miguel to get, you know, everybody's going to get a new move, and I said what I'd like for Miguel is a mid counter hit tool, because he doesn't have that, and that's supposed to be kind of his playstyle. He can collect plus frames, he has strong counter hits, but I realized that a mid counter hit tool really would round the character out a little bit more. Fair enough, but it really doesn't patch up that many of his weaknesses. On the other hand, if you gave this character something like forward 4-2 from Gigas, forward 4-4 from Zafina, something that when he's out here and the opponent is moving and trying to keep him out, that he could really throw out and just see if it hits. And if it doesn't, if he gets blocked, he's not going to eat a massive combo and lose the round. You know, he doesn't have to put all of his chips on the table just to be able to engage. But if he does score that knockdown, then he can run in and he can play the kind of Tekken he wants to. That would really round out the character so much better, because this low is too slow, these jabs are too short range, and these gap closers are just lackluster, with the exception of the bull rush, which is a little bit too slow and a little bit too linear. And yeah, I just thought that was interesting and something that I wanted to share. It really is interesting how I think the Mishima matchup is really bad for Miguel. I don't know if I'm right about that. I guess if you are a Mishima player or a Miguel player, let me know how you feel. But I feel like it's one of his worst matchups. And it is interesting because in this game, I used to think that matchups aren't really that much of a thing. They talk more about it in 2D games, I think. But in Tekken, I've started to notice more and more that I think some characters really struggle in certain matchups. For example, Elisa categorically can't beat bears. Luckily, Elisa and the bears encountering each other in a match is so rare. It's basically never happened, so you don't have to worry about it that much. But if you're going to play against Kazuya, you know, if you're going to play against Brian, if you're playing a lot of online, as you know, those two characters kind of make up pretty much, a very large, a substantial chunk of the player base. If you play online, they're characters that you're going to run into every day. And it makes you, even though you're not weak in an absolute sense, it really makes you struggle when you're a character like Miguel in the meta game of Tekken, when you have weak matchups that are very powerful. And so I think more and more that's what we need to look at for this character. And I think it's a problem that a couple of other weak characters share. Like I said, Chloe's another one. And I also thought a lot about Lars. Again, his one example of one thing he can do is his 4-4 1+2, because it's a safe mid with some counter hit launch properties, but it's not that good. And I think that's the reason you always see Lars players employ so many slash kicks. He does slash kicks all the time. That's not because Lars has a great slash kick. it's his only relatively safe option that he can get in with and gain some advantage so that he can get to play Tekken. Otherwise, he's just standing back here doing, risky down back force and sometimes getting launched. I think he shares that very same issue. So I just thought that it was interesting, and I wanted to talk about it. And I wanted to hear what you guys have to say about this. Do you feel like this character and a couple of others are uniquely bad at specifically trying to get in on Turtles? Because just switching to Zafina and switching to a couple of other characters who don't have that problem completely changed the way I was able to play Tekken. And I think that frustration that comes from not being able to engage with the opponent, of being very passive and feeling claustrophobic, might be the reason people abandon Miguel. I mean, I have abandoned him a couple of times, despite the fact that I love him so much, because that frustration just becomes a little bit too much. But like I said, I mean, hitting with this move makes me smile every single time. Doesn't matter how many times I do it. Same thing with this, same thing with this, same thing with this. Same thing with this, same thing with this. These are the most fun and interesting and great to use moves in the entire game. So, man, I hope we get some love for Miguel in Season 4. But even if we don't, I'm just going to keep on championing this character, because I really do not want to play a version of this game that he's not in. So, just a couple of thoughts that I had in my head today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys again very soon.